Now, that brain that you gave me, was it Hans Delbrooks? No.
It was 1974, and Mel Brooks was trying to make the ultimate homage to classic horror. He wanted it to be dark, moody, and serious, but his cast had other plans. Every time the cameras rolled, something went wrong. A hump on a back would move. A candle would vanish into thin air. A serious line would turn into a cartoon noise. Basically, the set was a playground. But there is one blooper that stands above the rest. A moment so uncontrollable, it almost shut down production. And the evidence is hiding in plain sight. The chaos captured on film. The comedy classic Young Frankenstein is famous for its sharp writing and perfect timing. But here is the catch. The movie you know and love is actually built on a foundation of total accidents. We often think of directors like Mel Brooks as master planners who control every single frame. But the reality of this production was pure, unadulterated chaos. And nothing proves this more than one specific, legendary photograph that has circulated among fans for decades. At first glance, the photo looks like a standard promotional shot. You see Gene Wilder, dressed as the respectable Dr. Frederick Frankenstein. Next to him is Marty Feldman, playing the bug-eyed assistant, Igor. It looks staged, it looks professional, but look closer. Wilder is doubled over. His face isn't in character, it is contorted in genuine painful laughter. Feldman is looking at him with a mischievous smirk that isn't in the script. This wasn't a posed picture for a poster. This was a candid snap taken the exact moment a scene completely fell apart. What most people don't realize is that this photo represents the true spirit of the movie. It wasn't about following the rules, it was about breaking them. The scene in question involved a simple interaction, but Feldman decided to go off script. He did something so unexpected, so bizarre that Wilder, a man known for his intense professionalism, could not handle it. He broke, and the camera caught it. This photo is the key to unlocking the secrets of the film. It tells us that the polished, final product was just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath, there was a constant battle to keep a straight face. But it wasn't just about the actors cracking up. The chaos started from the very first day of filming. You have to understand the pressure they were under. They were trying to parody the classic Universal horror movies of the 1930s. This meant they had to use the original props, the original laboratory equipment, and film in stark black and white. The environment was serious. The lighting was moody. It was the perfect setup for a horror movie. But put comedians like Wilder, Feldman, and Terry Garr in that environment, and you have a recipe for disaster. Take the bag scene, for example. This is one of the first times we see the doctor meet Igor. In the script, it was a simple exchange. The doctor arrives at the train station, and he asks Igor for help with the luggage. It was supposed to be a quick transitional scene to get them to the castle, but Marty Feldman had other ideas. As the cameras rolled, Wilder delivered his line perfectly. Walk this way. Then he handed his bag to Igor. In the script, Igor takes the bag, end of scene. But Feldman didn't just take the bag. He decided to improvise a line that would become legendary. He looked at the bags, then at the women accompanying the doctor, and mumbled, "You take the blonde, and I'll take the one in the turban." The crew froze. That line was definitely not in the pages. Terry Garr, playing the innocent Inga, almost exploded with laughter right there in the shot. You can actually see her shoulders shaking if you pause at the right second. Wilder, realizing what Feldman had just said, had to bite his lip to stop from ruining the take. But the crazy part is, they kept filming. Mel Brooks didn't yell cut, he let the madness play out. This set the tone for the entire production. It became a game. Feldman would constantly try to sabotage the serious moments with improvised lines, and Wilder would try to survive the scene without laughing. It became a war of attrition. And the bag scene was just the first shot fired. The audience watching at home thinks they are seeing a carefully rehearsed play, but in reality they are watching Gene Wilder fighting for his life against Marty Feldman's improv. It implies that the perfection of the movie is actually a lie. The brilliance wasn't in the script, it was in the struggle. And that famous photo? It is the trophy of Feldman's victory. It shows the exact moment the serious Dr. Frankenstein lost the battle against the chaos of his assistant. But this was just a warm-up, because as the filming went on, it wasn't just the actors who started acting up. The set itself began to turn against them. But the physical set was about to cause even more trouble. Physical comedy gone wrong. If you think handling Marty Feldman was hard, Imagine trying to handle a set that seemed to be haunted. The production team went to great lengths to make the movie look authentic. They rented the actual laboratory props used in the original 1931 Frankenstein film. These were massive electrical machines that buzzed and sparked. They were dangerous, old, and unpredictable. Basically, the actors were working inside a museum exhibit that could electrocute them. One of the most famous bloopers involves a simple wooden door. In the world of film, doors are supposed to be silent and smooth. They are built to look heavy, but swing easily so the actors can make dramatic entrances. Well, nobody told the door in the castle set. There is a scene where Dr. Frankenstein storms into his laboratory. He is angry. He is determined. He is supposed to slam the massive castle door behind him to punctuate his sentence. Gene Wilder geared up for the take. He delivered his lines with intensity, spun around and grabbed the iron handle. He shoved the door with all his might and nothing. The door jammed. Instead of a dramatic slam, there was a pathetic wooden thud and the door bounced back open. In most movies, the director would cut it immediately, but remember, this is Mel Brooks. He kept the cameras rolling. Wilder, being the genius that he is, didn't break character. He stared at the door, a look of genuine confusion and frustration washing over his face. He tried again. He wrestled with the latch. He put his shoulder into it. It wasn't acting anymore. It was Gene Wilder fighting a piece of wood. The crew was stifling giggles in the background. Finally, he managed to force it shut, and he spun back around to the camera, slightly out of breath, and continued the scene. The frustration you see on his face? That is real. That is the face of an actor who just wants the prop to work. And of course, that is the take that made it into the movie. It added a layer of clumsy realism to the character. The doctor isn't a cool, smooth operator. He is a guy who can't even close his own door. But the door was just the beginning. Let's talk about the candlestick mystery. This is a blink-and-you-miss-it moment that drives perfectionists crazy. In a scene where the doctor and Inga are exploring the secret passageways behind a bookcase, they are carrying a lit candle to light their way. The atmosphere is spooky. The shadows are long. It is a classic horror trope. However, filming in tight, dark corridors is a nightmare for continuity. Between takes, the actors would rest, put the props down, and get their makeup touched up. In the rush to reset the scene, someone forgot a crucial detail. In one shot, the candle is blazing in Inga's hand. The camera cuts to a reaction shot and then cuts back. Suddenly, the candle is gone. Vanished. It is not in her hand. It is not on the floor. It simply ceased to exist. But the scene continues as if the light source is still there. The lighting team had to keep the lights and aimed at them to mimic the candle glow, even though the candle itself was nowhere to be seen. Most people don't notice this because the dialogue is so funny, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. It is a ghost candle, a phantom prop. It is not that simple, though. The biggest prop failure of all happened with the brain. We all know the iconic moment where Igor drops the brain of the genius Hans Delbruck. It creates the central conflict of the movie, putting an abnormal brain into the monster. But the prop brain was slippery. It was made of wet glass and slime to look realistic. When Marty Feldman went to grab it, he wasn't supposed to drop it on the first take. The plan was to fumble it a few times to build suspense, but the glass jar was actually coated in condensation. As soon as he touched it, it shot out of his hands like a bar of wet soap. The crash you hear? That was real glass shattering. The look of terror on Feldman's face? Also real. He thought he had ruined a vital prop that would take hours to replace. The silence on set was deafening. Everyone waited for Brooks to scream. Instead, Brooks started laughing. He realized that the accidental immediate drop was funnier than the drawn-out fumble they had planned. It was sudden, it was shocking. So they cleaned up the mess, got the backup jar, and shot it again. Trying to recreate that exact accidental slip, the mistake became the blueprint for the scene. And then there was the elevator. Oh, the elevator. In the lump, there is a massive platform that lifts the doctor up to the roof during the storm. It looks like silicone, solid steel. It looks heavy, but in reality, it was a flimsy wooden platform painted silver. During one dramatic speech, Wilder and Gar are riding this elevator up. As it started to rise, the mechanism jerked. The entire platform violently shook to the left. Terry Gar let out a scream that was not in the script. She grabbed onto Wilder for dear life. Wilder, trying to look heroic, nearly lost his balance and fell over the railing. For a split second, the mad scientist looked like a terrified tourist on a broken carnival ride. But again, they used it. That wobble made the machine look dangerous. It made the danger feel real. It turned a cheap set malfunction into a moment of high stakes. Every time the set tried to fail, the actors used it to their advantage. They embraced the clumsiness. They leaned into the errors. And that is putting it lightly. The physical environment of young Frankenstein was a disaster zone, but the actors turned it into a playground. But while the props were rebelling against them, something else was happening with the script. The lines on the page were being rewritten in real time, and one specific word would change everything. This single word nearly shut down the production: when the script disappears. We have talked about physical mishaps, but the verbal bloopers in Young Frankenstein are in a league of their own. The script, written by Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks, was already brilliant. It was tight, witty, and full of puns. But when you hand a script like that to Marty Feldman, it becomes a suggestion, not a rulebook. Feldman was a jazz musician of comedy. He didn't just play the notes, he improvised the solos. The most famous example of this is the sedative scene. This is arguably the funniest moment in the entire film. The premise is simple. The doctor is trying to calm down the monster. He tells Igor to prepare a sedative. It is a medical term. It should be serious. The line in the script was something like, "Give him the sedative." But Feldman couldn't just say the word. That would be too easy. In the middle of the take, with the camera zooming in on his crooked eyes, he twisted his mouth and spat out a garbled, nonsensical version of the word sedative. He said it with such confusion, such bizarre inflection, that it sounded like an alien language. Gene Wilder was not ready for this. You have to remember Wilder wrote the scene. He knew what the line was supposed to be. When he heard sedative, his brain short-circuited. If you watch the movie closely, you can see Wilder pause. It is a tiny, microsecond pause where he is processing what just happened. He is deciding whether to laugh or to continue. He chooses to continue, but his voice cracks. He repeats the word, sedative, as if he is trying to teach a toddler how to speak. That interaction wasn't rehearsed. That was two masters of comedy figuring it out in real time. The crew was biting their knuckles to keep quiet. Brooks was behind the camera, shaking with silent laughter. They did another take where Feldman said it normally, just to be safe. But when they watched the dailies, the raw footage, everyone agreed the mistake was better. The blooper was the gold. But Feldman didn't stop there. He had a running gag that drove the continuity editor insane. We are talking about the hump. Igor has a massive, grotesque hump on his back. It is a key part of his character. But Feldman got bored easily. He thought it would be funny to mess with the audience and the actors. Without telling anyone, he started moving the hump. In the morning scenes, he would stuff the padding into the left shoulder of his cloak. After lunch, he would sneak off to the dressing room and shift it to the right shoulder. He wanted to see if anyone would notice. For days, nobody said a thing. The crew was too busy setting up lights. The director was focused on the blocking. But Gene Wilder noticed he was acting opposite Feldman every day. He started to feel like he was going crazy. He would look at Igor and think, wait, wasn't that on the other side? Finally, in the middle of a scene, Wilder couldn't take it anymore. He improvised a line to address the elephant or the camel in the room. He asked, Igor, would you mind telling me whose brain I did put in? No, wait, that's the brain scene. He actually asked about the hump directly. He said, you know, I'm a rather brilliant surgeon. Perhaps I could help you with that hump. Feldman, without missing a beat, looked at him with dead eyes and delivered the greatest unscripted comeback in history. What hump? That line was not in the script. It was Feldman gaslighting the main character. It was a direct challenge to Wilder. Dare to correct me. Wilder's reaction is priceless. He just stares. He accepts defeat. He realizes that in this movie, logic does not apply. That 3-second exchange sums up the entire dynamic of the film, the serious scientist trying to make sense of a world that makes no sense. It is not just the funny lines, though. It is the weird noises, the unexpected shrieks. In the scene where they are digging up the body, the mood is supposed to be grim. It is a graveyard. There is fog. They are committing a crime. But as they are digging, Feldman starts making these little grunts and squeaks. He is singing a song to himself. He is treating the grave robbery like a casual gardening job. Wilder is trying to be dramatic, shoveling dirt, looking over his shoulder for the police. And here is Igor, humming a tune while pulling a corpse out of the ground. The contrast is hysterical. The crazy part is, Wilder started to feed off of it. He started shoveling in rhythm with the noises. They created a musical number out of digging up a dead body. None of that was planned. It just happened because the chemistry was so potent. But there is one scene that pushed the improvisation to the absolute limit. It involved a tuxedo, a monster, and a song that nobody thought would work. This was the moment where the chaos stopped being a mistake and became the defining artistic choice of the movie. But the most dangerous moment on set didn't involve a monster. When the crew lost control, we have talked about the actors trying to hold it together, but there comes a point where the dam breaks. There is a limit to how much a human being can suppress laughter, and on the set of Young Frankenstein, that limit was tested every single hour. The blooper reels from this movie are legendary because they show just how often the production completely ground to a halt, because nobody could stop giggling. The epicenter of this laughter was the Puttin' on the Ritz musical number. This scene is famous for being absurd. Dr. Frankenstein and his 7-foot-tall monster, dressed in tuxedos and top hats, tap dancing in front of a sophisticated scientific audience. It is a ridiculous concept. In fact, Mel Brooks didn't want to include it. He thought it was too silly. He thought it would ruin the movie's reality. Gene Wilder had to beg him to keep it in. Wilder argued that the characters had to believe they were doing something classy. If they took it seriously, the audience would buy it. So they started filming Peter Boyle playing the monster, had to sing the chorus. But since he was a monster with a reconstructed brain, he couldn't enunciate. He had to scream, "Puttin' on the Ritz" at the top of his lungs. The first time Boyle let out that scream, the set exploded. It wasn't just the actors. The camera operators were shaking. The lighting guys up on the catwalks were laughing so hard the lights were wobbling. Gene Wilder, who was standing right next to him, had to turn his back to the camera to hide his face. You can see it in the final cut. There are moments where Wilder is looking down or looking away, and his shoulders are bouncing. He is laughing, he is crying, he is physically in pain from trying not to ruin the take. They had to shoot that scene dozens of times, not because they messed up the dance moves, but because they couldn't get through the song without breaking down. Mel Brooks would yell, "Cut," and then fall out of his chair laughing. It became a contest. Who would break first? Usually it was Wilder. He had the hardest job because he had to look proud. He had to look like a proud father watching his son perform. But looking at a giant green man screaming in a tuxedo is not something you can look at with pride for very long. And then there was the dart scene. The doctor is throwing darts while having a conversation with Inspector Kemp. The inspector has a wooden arm that keeps getting stuck in rigid positions. In one take, Kenneth Mars, playing the inspector, accidentally whacked himself in the face with his own wooden arm. It made a loud wooden clack sound. It hurt. It definitely hurt. But Mars didn't stop. He incorporated the hit into his performance, acting as if his mechanical arm was malfunctioning. Wilder, holding a dart, just froze. He stared at the inspector's face, waiting for him to break character. But Mars held it. The tension in the room skyrocketed. Everyone was waiting for the explosion of laughter. Wilder slowly raised the dart, his hand trembling, and threw it way off target. He missed the board entirely because he couldn't focus. The miss was real. The laughter that followed was real. What most people don't realize is that Mel Brooks often left the microphones on even after the scene ended. He wanted to capture the aftermath. There is audio of the crew gasping for air after the blind hermit scene. Gene Hackman, in an uncredited role, plays a blind man who accidentally pours hot soup into the monster's lap. The monster's reaction, a muffled, pained groan, was so funny that Hackman himself started chuckling. You have to understand, Gene Hackman was a serious, Oscar-winning dramatic actor. He wasn't a slapstick comedian, but Young Frankenstein broke him too. Seeing the monster run away, smashing through a wall, looking like a scared toddler, was too much. Hackman's laughter at the end of the scene makes the character feel warmer, more human. It wasn't acting, it was just a guy enjoying the absurdity of the moment. You can feel it. You can feel that the people making it were having the time of their lives. The bloopers weren't errors to be ashamed of. They were the fuel that kept the engine running. But amidst all this fun, there was a serious question. Would the audience get it? Would they understand that the mistakes were part of the charm? The final verdict would come from the most unexpected place, the perfect accident. So why does all of this actually matter? Why have we spent the last few minutes obsessing over a hump that magically shifts shoulders, a wooden door that refuses to close, and a candid photo of Gene Wilder losing his composure? To the casual viewer, these might look like sloppiness. They look like continuity errors that a script supervisor missed, or a jagged edge that should have been sanded down in the editing room. But to understand Young Frankenstein, you have to understand that these aren't just trivia facts to be listed on a fan form. They are the very DNA of the movie. Young Frankenstein is widely considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest, comedies ever made. And the crucial realization is this: it isn't a masterpiece despite these errors, it is a masterpiece because of them. There is a pervasive myth in Hollywood that a perfect movie requires a perfect production. We tend to idolize the directors who are absolute control freaks. We think of Stanley Kubrick, who would famously demand hundreds of takes for a simple scene just to get the lighting on a glass of water exactly right. That approach works for drama, it works for horror. But Mel Brooks took the exact opposite approach, and that is where his genius lies. He realized that comedy doesn't live in perfection. Comedy lives in the unexpected. It lives in the chaos. If you rehearse a joke too many times, you kill it. You suffocate the life out of it. It becomes stale. It becomes robotic. It becomes a recitation rather than a reaction. Brooks understood that for the humor to land, the set needed to feel like a playground, not a factory. By allowing the chaos to exist, by keeping the scenes where the door jammed, where the candle disappeared, or where an actor slipped on a line, he kept the energy alive. He captured lightning in a bottle rather than trying to manufacture a storm. Let's take a moment to debunk a very common theory regarding this film. Because the movie is so brilliant, some diehard fans have convinced themselves that every single mistake was part of a grand master plan by Brooks. They theorize that Igor's hump moving from left to right was written into the script on day one. They argue that the vanishing candle on the bookshelf was a deliberate, high IQ homage to the bad continuity editing found in 1930s horror films. But the truth is much simpler, much messier, and honestly, much more magical. They were accidents, pure and simple. They were happy accidents. Brooks didn't plan for the door to get stuck. He didn't plan for the props to malfunction. But he was smart enough to recognize the gold when he saw it. A lesser director would have yelled, "Cut," and demanded a reset. A lesser director would have wanted a clean take. Brooks was smart enough to look at the mess and say, "That's funny? Keep it." He understood that the texture of the film came from its flaws. The legacy of these bloopers teaches us something profound about creativity that we often forget. Perfection is actually incredibly boring. The photo that wasn't edited, the one of Gene Wilder laughing that we started this journey with, is a stark reminder that the human element is what connects us to art. When we watch that scene and we see Gene Wilder breaking character, even for a split second, something shifts in the audience. We aren't seeing the character of Dr. Frankenstein anymore. We are seeing Gene. We are seeing a friend laughing at a joke. It breaks down the invisible wall between the screen and the audience. It makes us feel like we are in on the joke, sitting in the room with them, rather than just observing them from a distance. It creates intimacy. 20 years from now, or even 50 years from now, people will still be pausing this movie to find the missing candle. They will still be laughing until their sides hurt at the sedative scene. They will still be sharing that photo of the cast losing their minds on set. Why? Because look at the state of modern cinema. We live in a world of CGI, green screens, and perfectly polished blockbusters where every frame is scrubbed clean by a computer. In that context, there is something incredibly refreshing about a wooden door that just won't close. There is something grounding about a physical prop that wobbles. It feels tactile. It feels real. It reminds us that human beings made this thing. So the next time you sit down to watch Young Frankenstein, I want you to watch it differently. Don't just watch the story. Don't just listen to the dialogue. Watch the edges of the frame. Watch the actor's eyes. Look for the split second where they are fighting back a smile because Marty Feldman just improvised something insane. Look for the props that don't quite work because that isn't where the mistake is. That is where the real movie is. That is where the humanity is. That is where the magic happens. And honestly, calling it magic is putting it lightly. Do you think the movie would have been as legendary if they had fixed all these mistakes? Or is the chaos the secret ingredient? I want to hear your take. Drop a comment below, smash that like button if you learned something new, and subscribe for more deep dives into cinema's happy accidents. See you in the next one. See you in the next one. See you in the next one.